That's going to get very loud very quickly. There we go. All right. Re-downloaded OBS, and hopefully that will fix my issues that I had yesterday. Hey Lennon, how's it going? So we're good there. So let's do... Let's do Gatsby. Let's do child theming today. So I think I'm pretty much done with that. I just need to clean up a little bit.
I don't see anything to connect. Check the device
Computer.
to use.
Stop. Problem with having so many smart devices in my house is that they all go off with different keywords. So they go off all the time. There we go. Extend it to be recursive. There's a couple things that have happened in Themes Land, which is pretty dope. Where's the link to? I will have to search for it. I thought it was linked onto this one, but I can't find it. So static. So this just got merged in by Dustin, which does static queries for themes, which is pretty dope. That was something that was sort of not so great with the previous themes implementation. Looks like somebody's having a conversation around how Gatsby themes and Hugo compare, so we might get into that in a little bit. Let's get that out of here. Make sure my Emacs is running. So I basically restart my computer before each stream now. So let's see if things are up and running as I expect them to be. So theme examples are what I'm going to be using to work on this child theming. It looks like actually one of the maintainers updated my code in the PR, so I need to pull this back in and then rebase it. I think they just ran prettier, so it shouldn't be a super big deal to do that. It's not one of my favorite things to have happen in one of my PRs because I sort of have it working locally and then like somebody makes a change and now I have to stop what I'm doing and go address the fixes that they actually, or the changes they actually made. So in vendor Gatsby here, I'm going to have a child theming branch, and Dustin made some changes, so I'm going to pull those down here. Luckily, I haven't done anything significant. I sort of like a rebase workflow for my PRs, so what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to knock his commits for that merge in off so that I can keep rebasing, because that's... yeah, so child themes is... Let's see, I'll have the code locally. It's not published yet, so child themes are in this PR basically. But I can show you exactly how they work. So there's this Gatsby theme examples repo that I have. And there's a pull request on this repo that's called child theming. And basically what this is that I've taken, inside of the themes directory, I had a theme called Gatsby Theme Blog before. And now I have two themes. I have one called Gatsby Theme Blog and one called Gatsby Theme Blog Core. And what I've done in this situation is I've split the data structures and sort of like the, hey, this uses remark, hey, this is some front matter, this is the way that we query the data and things like that, and I've taken it out and I've put it into this core theme, which is the parent theme. And then there's another theme. I don't think this search is going to do me any good. There's this other theme, which is a child theme, and the child theme specifies the parent theme as its experimental themes config. And what this does is it means that whenever you use this theme, it'll take the parent, it'll merge it with the child, and then it'll merge it with your config. So I think there's an example in this PR as well. If I can find it. Yeah, so here we go. So when you actually use it, the only thing that you actually have to use is, here, let me show you in the PR actually. It'll probably be easier over here. So we have this themes directory, right? Let me make that bigger. And it has these two themes in it. We have the core theme, which has a bunch of files in it. And we have the child theme, which has a bunch of files in it. They're both regular, normal themes. So effectively, it's a Gatsby site being composed with a Gatsby site. And then when you go to use that, all you have to do is in the Gatsby config of the site that you're using them in, you just have to specify the child theme, and the child theme handles importing the dependencies of the parent themes. So yeah, I mean that's child theming. If you already know how themes work, then child themes is basically just the ability for a theme to specify a theme as a dependency. Does that make sense? Or do you have any other questions on that? This was possible before child themes, but the thing that wasn't possible is the, so there's a user experience improvement here, which is that you only need to specify the child theme if it specifies parent themes in your Gatsby config. Before, you could get the same behavior, but the way that you would get it is you would have to specify both the parent theme and the child theme when you went to use the themes. So if you have like a some internal theme that you use for your company, that you use for like all the marketing sites and things like that, and it has I don't know, a component library in it, some pages for a blog. Yeah. Basically, you can abstract themes even further behind the scenes if you need to. That's the idea. Oh, if I can spell this right, it will run. Yeah, and what I've done in this PR already is I've taken the original Gatsby themes algorithm, which I wrote a blog post on here. So if you read through this blog post, which is christopherbiscardi.com/post/Gatsby themes core algorithm, it'll explain what happens in the actual merging of the Gatsby configs and things like that. Right. So how we merge the Gatsby configs and like why we merge the Gatsby configs and things like that. And then what I've done in this PR is I've basically taken that code that is in the blog post and I've moved it out into its own file. And what I've done when I did that is I made it recursive so that themes can resolve other themes, basically. And it merges everything indeterministically and everything like that. So really, the only thing left to do in this PR, I believe, is make sure that component shadowing still works, which I think we saw fail over here. Yeah, the resolve component path of component shadowing. Hey, Shig, how's it going? Let's see. So let's go into not themes. We don't really care about themes right now. What we care about is Gatsby. So let's take the changes that were made before because we have to clean this up a little bit. I guess he merged upstream master in, which is unfortunate. I think those are just lint errors though in the commit that he made on top. Let's see. Blah blah. VRAM prettier, whatever. Test plugin name to handle symlinks rather than handle path. That's a commit in a different PR. So if we look at the commits, there's the merge in, there's an update, and there's a lint errors fix. So when I pushed this, I knew it had lint errors. I was pushing it up to... I'm working on making Gatsby themes the algorithm recursive, so basically enabling parent and child themes. So you can basically specify a theme, or you can extend from another theme and then use that theme in a user site and things like that. So there's this PR that's up that has most of it. This is just white space changes. There's a theme config here. I don't know that that's the right change to make there, because this is supposed to be passing in options to the theme, and the theme config spec. Yeah, if I remember correctly, there's a theme config, there's a theme spec here. That's defined here, right? And then theme config, okay, so theme config is the options. So that's a good change right there. So we'll keep that. This looks like white space. I don't know why this got changed from an object return in a fat arrow to the literal return. But maybe that was a lint rule that he fixed. And then this is another change that we need to keep in. And then I think there was another commit in here. How far down the rabbit hole does it go? It goes as far as you want. If you're interested in rabbit holes, by the way, I just wrote a blog post on Gatsby MDX and how we have to render HTML for it. And this, if you like rabbit holes, this is the relevant code that will take you down a rabbit hole. And you can go look up what MemoryFS is and how Webpack works internally and why the static site generator plugin does this and how we insert global variables that are actually the code that we want to run, and then we run the code inside of the Webpack bundle and then execute the function and then return an HTML object. if you like rabbit holes. If you don't like rabbit holes that much, then don't worry about it. But this is a rabbit hole. Themes is much less of a rabbit hole. It's much more of a clone deep is required in that situation actually. Um, if you don't use clone deep in that function, what happens is you end up modifying the actual Webpack config that Gatsby uses to run the site. Because we're using the actual Gatsby config that your site is built in, and we're copying out of the Redux store, cloning it so that it doesn't mean so that when we make changes, it doesn't affect the actual site, and then we're making a ton of changes and running a bunch of HTML processing on it, and then we're making a couple other changes, like we replaced the entry, we replaced the output, and things like that. So let's see where this commit is. 572. It doesn't look like any of these are actually relevant. So let's take the top two commits off. So now we're behind 30 commits, which is good. So there is one more change on top, which I think is good. Just that Gatsby node change, which is one line, which is kosher, so that's good. Yeah, there is a ton. If you ever have something that you want to contribute to, I'm happy to help. I think there's actually, if you want to get started contributing to Gatsby, I actually have a PR that you can take in the theme examples repo that I just can't get around to, but basically all of the code is here. So if you want to go take a look at Gatsby theme examples, it's the 5th pull request, and it's a topography.js change. And the topography.js change is basically so that you can pass absolute paths for the topography.js module, so that it works with themes. Because right now what we have to do is do a bit of finagling on the path. But I mean, this is basically the diff. You need to remove some console logs and make sure it works, but that's about it. So if you want to get started contributing to Gatsby, feel free to take this PR. I literally have I haven't gotten to it. I have other stuff I need to be doing. So let's see, we're in vendor Gatsby. Let's go into Gatsby itself. Let's build this. Yeah, basically, I mean, it compiles already. If you make that change to the topography.js plugin, it already compiles. It just, like, you need to remove the console logs and probably maybe clean up the code a little bit, and then you can submit the PR. Okay, so we've taken these two commits off. which is good. So now let's rebase. I think we're still on origin here. Yeah. So this rebase should go through with no problems because nobody's touching the files that I'm touching. And I'll lint for this. I think there's a yarn lint in here. There might not be. Let's go out 3 directories and then yarn lints. What is the... Oh, it's the... Yeah, okay. I know that issue. I don't think force with lease is going to work here, but it might. It's basically, force with lease is better than force because it means that if somebody added a commit here while I was doing this, what I just did, the force with lease would fail, whereas force would just definitely push it all up. So cool, I'm expecting lint errors on this, but that's fine. Let's see, what am I doing here? So let's go back to the blog post example, because what we are actually working on here is the component shadowing. Because I think the component shadowing is actually broken in the current PR. So let's open the component shadowing code and take a look. Packages, Gatsby. Nope, that's the wrong directory. This is what I want. Packages, Gatsby. And then there's a couple directories in here. Source is the one that we want. So this is the core Gatsby module. It's like if you want to look at anything that core Gatsby does, it'll be in this package. Everything else is a plugin, which is pretty dope. And even things in here are plugins, like you'll see in a second. Internal plugins are plugins that just automatically get added. Oh, my Emacs seems to have. So yeah, if we tree this, let's tree this for fun. Tree packages, Gatsby. We'll see a bunch of files. And if we get to the top of them, because there are a lot of files here, we can see that there's changelog, readme, some mocks for tests, Babel config, a cache directory for things that live in the cache. There's the distribution because we've already run a build. So all of this stuff is compiled code that we don't need to worry about. It all comes from the source directory. So if we look in these, see there's the GraphQL. So when you import GraphQL, it comes from there. There's some TypeScript files, node modules, which we definitely don't need to deal with. And that's about it. Cool, so Emacs is up. Let's open that up. Let's just blow this way up here. Cool, so it's not a super long file. I just enabled follow mode. Themes are going to make it easier to create WYSIWYG services that are actually good. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about where themes are going and where the general, like, the possibilities exist. Yeah, I need to get some water, actually. Yeah, I'm super excited. I think that there's a couple more things coming in the pipeline for themes that if you think they're powerful now, they'll be sort of even more powerful soon. Let's see. So I just open follow mode here. It's just the same file in both panes. So this is the tail end of the file, and that's not. So what themes does is it takes themes. Let's open another, since we don't need this to be follow mode either. Let's look at the Gatsby node here. So what themes does is save that. In the Redux store now, there's a themes property. So we pull that out of the store for the theme or component shadowing plugin. And then if there are any themes defined, so this got cleaned up a bunch from what it was before. Before it was like we had to iterate over a bunch of stuff and things like that, and like we were checking actually if config.experimental themes was set, and it was a bit of a mess. So we're setting the Webpack config to use our plugin. Our plugin is component shadowing. Component shadowing takes the themes and it returns the names for them. I think that at some point we're actually going to have the resolved path to each of them, so that we resolve the path once. Yeah, they actually do use Redux behind the scenes, and it works pretty well. You know, I think I've been using Redux since 2015, 2016, something like that. I think it came out in 2015. I think that's when Dan gave the talk. But we were using, what were we using? I was at Docker in 2015 and we were using Yahoo's isomorphic flux implementation, which I think is called Fluxible, because we were doing server-side rendering for SEO purposes for Docker Hub. So that was like, that was intense. That was a lot. But yeah. Yeah, Gatsby uses Redux behind the scenes. It's pretty cool. And everything is actually in a single directory. So if you want to look at all of the Redux stuff that Gatsby does, it's in packages. This is a little small. Packages, Gatsby, source, Redux. And then you've got reducers and actions. For actions, there actually isn't really anything in here. The only thing is add page dependency. But for reducers, that's the really interesting thing. Gatsby doesn't use anything like immer, as far as I know, which is part of the reason that we actually have to do that clone deep that we were mentioning before. Because when we ask for the object from Redux, we actually get the object from Redux. We don't get a copy of the object from Redux. So let's pull this in as well. I mean, that's just how JavaScript works, right? Like, Redux returns something you can mutate because that's the way that JavaScript object references work. I wouldn't say that it's the best way for it to work. I'm a huge fan of immutable data by default, for sure. And immer is a great approach to that. I don't think we really had a great approach to that until immer did some things fairly recently. And Gatsby existed a couple years ago, so there would have to be a bunch of changes made to support Immer or something like that. So where are we? Going back. So this fails, and we're just going to look at where this fails. I think I already know where it fails, and I know where this code needs to be written, but just in the interest of showing it for the stream. Cool. So path argument must be of type string, receive type undefined. Component shadowing 75. So that's here, but we're looking in dist. So instead of looking here, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the dist folder for Gatsby. We're going to go to the same place. We're going to go internal plugins, component shadowing, and then there is, what is this, index.js? And then from here, we're going to go check line 75. So this is the cache. Path argument must be of type string. So possible component that path may be undefined. Project root may be undefined, something like that. So in any case, it's one of these path.join calls. Seems like it's returning something that is undefined. So we can close this out. We'll close this out and make this all one nice big. So one thing that we do need to do here is that we now need to check every theme for this file, basically. So if you component shadow, basically what you're doing is in your theme, if you have a file at source components thing.js, what happens is that the user can put something in source components, your theme name, thing.js, and it'll override it when you try to import it. So what we need to do here is basically check all the other themes for files that would match this. I think technically what we should do is actually check only the specified parents of a theme, but I don't think that that will matter very much because you have to namespace it specifically, and if you namespace it specifically, then we'll have the right path anyway. So let's do a quick what did I do here? Yeah. So we're doing a very quick debug here. So we have two themes that are running when we run this blog. Are we not even getting there? Interesting. So let me do this as well. Oh, right. I forgot to build. So one of the things that working with Gatsby packages is that you need to build them because they have a build process for all of their packages. That was interesting. What was that? That was unknown type image sharp fixed. That's interesting. That seems entirely unrelated. Gatsby Transformer Sharp. Maybe Gatsby Transformer Sharp had a change. That would be interesting. Path argument must be of type string. But we don't see any of the console logs. Nice. That's awesome. You know, even if you screw something up, the Gatsby people are super nice. They'll help you figure it out. Really interested into why this is not logging out. Try running a yarn here just to make sure that we have the package that we want. Really what we should be doing here is including all of the packages in the Gatsby multi-package repo. But I took a shortcut and I'm just using the Gatsby package because that's the only one I'm modifying. This is a new error that is interesting though. And doesn't seem related to theming at all. Let's try debug. Yeah, the Gatsby team only uses backticks. They don't use quotes and things like that. So that's sort of what I was referring to when I said that it needed to be cleaned up a little bit. There's a couple of like mundane mechanical changes that need to happen, but the functionality is there. Query watcher. Here we go. Path, theme, undefined. So component is undefined, right? Yeah, component is undefined? Really? That seems completely bad. See, component is here, component is there. Let's check request.path. We might have just discovered actually a new bug in component shadowing by doing parent themes, so that would be interesting. See. Did we get what we wanted? We didn't get as far as we wanted to. Component is not defined. Did I log out component here? Why did I log out component here? That doesn't make sense. So we're going to have to do that. We'll run the build. Let's make this below this because it seems like a more useful layout. We don't actually need to see any of it. We just need to know that it's done. Request.path. So we have Gatsby theme examples, themes, Gatsby theme blog, source components, tokens. So tokens should be the name of the component. But the theme is what's undefined, the tokens is not. So let's check the themes that we're passing in and see if those are correct. Path, request.path, themes list. Themes list seems fine, but the theme doesn't get passed into request. So this request path is actually fine, so let's get rid of that. So if no theme matches, we return, so we don't have to worry about that. And there's theme here. Oh, right. Okay. That's the issue. I changed this to be matching theme. And then themes. Because we'll need that. Yeah, I mean, it's possible that that needs to be changed. So does it remove program, maybe, is the one that you're talking about? Yeah, so program is is it used elsewhere in the file other than this module? It may have been updated since I made this diff, so you may have to look at this and sort of figure it out. But program is the, let me take a look at this for you. Why not? So what file did we change? Gatsby node. So I see it only once. Yeah, I only see it here, which I think is fine because we remove that and we do a different thing here. Yeah, we also remove that. The new module still uses program. Oh, did I remove that and then use it? Yeah, so I did. That's silly. That's stupid. I shouldn't have done that. You should definitely leave that in because it's clearly being used. That is yeah, that's my fault. I'll be right back. Yeah, definitely leave that variable in because clearly it was being used. Solve component. Okay, so now we have themes and we have the matching theme. So this should, so if you've never seen this syntax before, it means that we're renaming the matching theme argument in this object to theme, which means that we don't have to change any of the actual function body. And let's see if that does anything for our undefined error. FS is not defined. That's probably good. Is that in? It's in component shadowing. So where do we use FS? Existing. So I swapped that out for. I used to use required resolve, which I think we still use somewhere else. So I can show it to you. We use required.resolve here, and I used to use that below as well. But the issue with using that is that if you use it, it won't find TypeScript files and things like that. So if people want to use TypeScript, or if people want to use Reason, or if people want to use, I don't know, I assume that you could build a Gatsby site in Rust. Somebody should do that. But basically the idea is that required.resolve only resolves JavaScript files, and path or fs.existsync will check for file existence, which is what we actually need. Cool. So that fixed our issue. There's a different issue here, I think. Can't find the component located at. It's really funny when you read your own error messages that you wrote later, because I definitely wrote this error message. We can't find the component located at Gatsby theme blog source components bio and imported in pages index.js. So why not? Let's go find out. Let's make sure that file exists. Let's see, themes, Gatsby theme blog. Let's check source, components, bio. So bio's here, it exists. Doesn't matter what it does because that's not the issue. And then we need to check source pages index for the import, and the import is components bio, which makes sense. So I think because we swapped from path to require, or from require to path, we're going to have to do a little bit of finagling here. Let's also take this and make sure that it actually does exist. Yep, so that exists. So there's a new error message that got added in a PR, which is the one that we're running into. I'm going to console log the built component path. I think the exist sync is actually what is causing the issue here. Because if we do, where's the exist sync? Right, so this no longer includes the file extension, which is interesting. So how are we going to get around that? I think that what we want to do here is check to see if a file with the file name exists and not care about the extension, because we need to be able to accept TypeScript or JavaScript or like reason files or whatever here as well. So I think if instead of exist sync, I do a little bit more logic here. And we do like a directory read. We're going to chop the directory off of the possible component path. So dir will end up being a number of files with extensions that are potentially the ones that we want. We'll debug that out just to be sure. Get rid of these extra console logs up here as well. So we fixed that issue. Where are we? Dir, we log out the dir. Assuming that dir is a list of potential files, what we actually want is a new regex that will check to see if they are compatible. So if we take dir and map over it, we do I can't remember what call this will be, but I think it's a path.ext name or something like that. Ext name. Dir name isn't what we want. We want the file name without the extension. Space path. Last portion of path, similar to the Unix space name command. So if we have crux.html, we get crux.html. So what we're going to do is we're going to do, where are we? In a map, we're going to take the file path, we're going to turn it into a well, that's not true actually. This variable name is going to have to be the extension. And the extension so we have the file name without the extension. and we're just going to return the file name without the extension. And when we do that, we're going to check for includes on the possible component path. I think for the possible component path, we can just do path.basename. So now what we're doing here is we're checking the directory in the specific theme that we've looked into, or the user's project. And we're iterating over that list of files. When we iterate over that list of files, we look for the file name, which, now that I'm thinking about it, probably needs to be a path, but we can change that later. Look for the file name without the extension. If we get all the file names without the extensions, then what we do at the end is we check to see if it includes the file name of the file that we're looking for. So const exists equals this instead of existing. If I can type or speak today. So let's just take a look and see if that works. I'm going to get some more water. Okay, no such file or directory scanner, Gatsby theme blog. Let's log a couple things out here. A little bit of an extra quote there. Let's take this up and let's figure out what this is up here. Why is the cam so small? I can actually change that. It's so small because I haven't changed it, is the issue. I think I can do it by doing this. Oh wow, that's not. How do I lock the aspect ratio here? Good luck, Liner. So we're building some themes for Gatsby. Is that a better face size? We're doing yeah, Gatsby is pretty freaking sweet. I like it a lot. But so we built themes, or I built themes into Gatsby, and now what I'm doing is I'm building child theming into Gatsby. So before you could only have one theme. It's not the webcam that's the issue for the aspect ratio, though. That is 100% OBS. OBS is um, a piece of software that will let you do just about anything. Yeah, how do you like Prismic Liner? I haven't used it myself yet, but I've heard a little bit about it. Beppo Sama, the way that themes work. So if you want to actually, so here's a blog post that I wrote on the Gatsby blog that explains how themes work. There is a video that I think somebody just linked on Twitter, so I'll look for it on there. There's a talk I gave at Gatsby Days about how themes work, which is on YouTube somewhere under the Gatsby YouTube channel. So you can look for it there. And then there is a blog post that I wrote about how the core algorithm works. So the very, very, very brief rundown about how themes work is that themes are anything that you can do in a Gatsby site, you can encode into a theme and release as an NPM package, and then somebody can download and use to accentuate their site. So there is a config option called experimental themes right now that you can just say, like, if somebody published a Gatsby site as Gatsby theme blog, you could say, I'm using Gatsby theme blog as my theme. You don't actually need to specify anything else other than the dependency and package JSON, and then you can just start writing markdown files. And everything will just work. Yeah, the WordPress thing is interesting. Most people I've seen that work with WordPress and have chosen Gatsby are either doing it because they want to give content editors the familiar experience of editing inside of WordPress, which is a valiant thing to do. It's great. Um, yeah, yeah. Clients love the editing interface of WordPress for sure. There is incremental builds coming to Gatsby, but I don't know the state of them, I think. So I actually don't know where to see that. Somebody just followed. I wonder if I need to look at OBS. Ugh. Okay, so I had OBS set up to put that up, and I heard the sound, but I don't have any idea who just followed. So thank you for following, for sure. And I guess I need to open like Streamlabs or something to figure out who that is. Recent events. Oh, Archig, you just followed? Thank you. I should probably leave that recent events thing up so that I can actually see it and know what happens on my stream. Yeah, I think there's something to do with incremental builds. I don't know all of the details about it, but I've seen it mentioned in various places. Yeah, if you ever have a suggestion for what you want to see me do on stream, then I'm more than open to doing anything. But yeah, I use Gatsby for all of my sort of like website stuff at this point too. I used to, when Create React App came out, what is Teep.io? Building your apps without managing the content. So this is a CMS? Interesting. Yeah, people use, what are they? Either Contentful or I completely forget what the actual, what the other one that I'm thinking of is. But, well, here, answer me this. Did any of you see something pop up when I got followed before? Yeah, so static content is interesting. Static content is so Gatsby isn't just a static content platform, right? It does dynamic stuff too. You can build complete apps with it, and the static content aspect of it is extremely interesting because there are a lot of people that are doing like editing interfaces and things like that and remote CMSs. So there's WordPress, there's Contentful, there's like a million other different headless and yeah, there's just like a million different CMSs out there. And up until now, they were all fairly integrated, right? They were fairly monolithic. It was um, like WordPress, right? Like WordPress is just PHP, and you use PHP to do everything, and you render your site and do the content, etc. Yeah, but Contentful is so expensive. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. There, I think that there will be a really strong headless CMS that comes out within the next year or so. I don't necessarily know that Contentful is the one that will be there forever. That's super interesting. Um, I don't use Contentful myself. I use mostly static stuff, or mostly file-based or Airtable and things like that. Um, but yeah, let's see. What is their actual pricing? Pay as you grow. Microspace, $40 a month. 24 content types, one role. So you can only have one person accessing this? That's interesting. Um, goes straight from 40 to $1,000 a month, doesn't it? Yeah, I get it. I really do. Yeah, Gutenberg is interesting because I feel like it was very, very hyped up as like the next generation of WordPress, and it isn't really living up to the hype. Ooh, manually, yeah, yeah, I hear you. That's tough. Asking everybody to be like, hey, can you upload this to like Cloudinary or Image9 or whatever, and then like manually copy it over and like construct the URL yourself and then modify the website by hand, is just not tenable for most people. Let's see, where are we here? Um, looking for Gatsby theme blog. I'm adding debugs in here. And the base name is what I wanted to debug up here too. So let's build that. Sanity. I saw Sanity very recently. Um, I haven't used it at all yet. Let's run this and see if we get the output that we want while I do this. Yeah, API based. Looks like there's a CLI. UI interface doesn't seem too bad for editing. Yeah, why not? What do? I build software for people. So I'm an independent consultant. Um, and one of the things that I'm actually working on right now is Gatsby themes. So Gatsby is actually giving me some money to build theming for them. So yeah, that's what I do. I build basically open source software for money. Um, the other thing that I do is I help early stage startups, like 3 to 30 people, develop their products before they have seed rounds. I am 28 currently. I guess I'll be 29 this month. And how did I get into that? Let's see. About like 10 years ago, I started programming. I taught myself how. Um, and the original things that I did were because of open source software. Well, thank you. It's 20 days away still, or something like that. But yeah, thanks. Um, it feels birthday, man. But yeah, so I did. I started teaching myself ActionScript like 10 years ago. And very quickly after I learned ActionScript, Apple basically killed it, right? So I switched over to JavaScript for a while. I did Node when it came out around like 0.2. Um, and then all through that time, I was doing basically open source software, and I got like, I think one of my first paychecks ever was building an open source module for some random person that just like had $15 to spend. I was charging very little money and things like that. Um, and then did that for a very long time. Tried to build a company down in San Diego. It didn't work out. Um, and that was about 6 or 7 years ago. Came up to San Francisco, started working at startups in San Francisco. I built a team at Docker during their period of really high growth. So they're built on open source software as a whole company, which really gave me a lot of insight into that kind of stuff and how to build a company on top of open source software. And then in between that and sort of like any other jobs that I would take, I would do consulting projects. And the consulting projects were for mostly startups in the area. Some of them were open source stuff, some of them weren't. Um, but these days, I basically have angled myself into being exclusively somebody who works on companies that are built on top of open source software. So like Docker is built on top of the Docker and Moby projects at this point. Um, and they're built entirely on open source software with some closed source enterprise offerings. And then uh, Gatsby now is doing like they're built on entirely on open source software, right? Everything's open source. They're just starting to build some services and stuff like that. But thanks for the follow, by the way. But see, I have the event stream up now. I can see that you did that. There you go. See, there's a little thing that's showing up on the. There we go. That's cool. But yeah, so that's how I got into open source. That's how I got into doing programming at all, really. I was in college at the time when I started and taught myself. So yeah, it's been a road. See, what output did we get here? Possible component path is not defined because, yeah, that makes sense, because it's not a thing. But yeah, so I've gotten paid to do a whole host of things over the last, say, 7 or 8 years. It's been really fun. I shipped Haskell to production at one point for a number of different clients. Yeah, so I mean, I did. The only reason I went to college is to play volleyball. Um, when I was in high school, I was so I don't know if you can tell from the stream, but I am 6'9", quite tall. That's why you can't see anything on the floor. Um, so I was playing volleyball in high school, and I was pretty good at it. So I got money to play in college, and that's why I went to college. Yeah, Arshig just realized I'm 6'9", I think, is what just happened there. Yeah, I mean, everybody's bad when they start out. Like, literally everybody is bad at everything when they start out. Yes, tall people in the chat. That's great. But yeah, literally everybody is bad at everything when they start out. Like, I spent my first like 6 months to a year just like literally banging my head against how any of this shit worked. Incredibly short for your age. I don't know. When I turn 30, should I grow another 3 inches? Is that what we're saying here? Let's see. So possible component path tokens. So then we get. Hey, Agner, how's it going? Yeah, it's fine, Archie. I hear you just gain like, an inch or two for every year, right? So you'll be like 6 foot in no time. Let's see, possible component path. Dir. Where's dir? Dir doesn't get passed. Yeah, I think most people copy paste Docker at this point still. Um, see, I started working for Docker like 4 years ago at this point. Um, hey, congrats on the PR, Arshig. If you want to tag me in it, I'm happy to take a look at it or anything. Um, yeah, I think most people don't really understand what Docker is yet. Um, yeah, for the PR, Arshig, you basically you submit it. The next step will be somebody will come to it and be like, hey, this needs to change or that needs to change or whatever, and then you'll change it and then it'll get merged. That's how it works. Yeah, I mean, you don't need to be the best in the world at like Postgres and GraphQL. You need to find a niche that you're really happy working in, right? If you like, for me, I'm really passionate about open source and things like that. So I've sort of carved out a niche where I can now walk up to companies and be sort of like, hey, this is what I do. I built a team at Docker, which is built on open source technologies. Like I understand how to do these things. I understand how to build the community. I understand how to interact with them and things like that. And I can sort of sell that now and tell people that, hey, this is what I do. This is how I do it. This is why you want me to do it. Um, and you just need to find the thing that you're happy doing. You don't need to find the thing that you're good at doing. You need to find the thing that you're happy doing. Because the thing that is most important is that you keep doing it. If you keep doing it, you will be top 10%, top 5% in the world at doing it, right? There's so much to do in computer science and there's so much to do in engineering. There, if you just keep doing it, you'll speed past pretty much everybody else in a very short period of time. And one day you'll look at like what you're doing, you'll be like, yeah, I don't know, we could do this or we could do that, and then like the 5 people that happen to be with you at the time will have no idea what you're talking about. And then you'll be the expert. It's literally just sticking with it and doing a little bit more every day. Everything else, like whether you're smart enough or not, is not a thing. It's not like it doesn't matter, right? You just need to either stick with it or you don't, and that's the decider on whether you can do this or not. Find possible component path, reader sync, possible component path. We never get to dir, which is interesting. So does this exist? It does not. Interesting. Oh, there's a space there. Okay, so the issue that we just ran into here is that the directory that I'm trying to read doesn't actually exist. Um, so that's interesting. We need to detect if all of the things on the way to the directory exist, which is interesting. I used TypeScript for about a year. I worked at Dropbox, which is not entirely, but mostly written in TypeScript at this point. They used to use CoffeeScript. They compiled it all to JavaScript and dumped it into the Git repo while I was there. So there was, yeah, basically everything was TypeScript while I was there. Um, I've shipped Flow to production. I've shipped TypeScript to production. Um, I personally don't like them. Yeah, CoffeeScript, right? Um, I think that TypeScript is the new CoffeeScript, and that it'll go away in a couple years, and that'll be it. And then you'll have these huge code bases that you need to compile into JavaScript and then deal with. Um, but I'm not going to tell anybody to stop using CoffeeScript or to not look into CoffeeScript or CoffeeScript to not use TypeScript or to not look into TypeScript. Um, I've used a couple of very strongly typed languages in my career, and like Haskell being one of them. And the value of type systems is something that's worth learning. Even if you don't end up using TypeScript as your primary language or for your primary projects, or you don't end up really even using it professionally at all, it's worth learning the value of a type system. Yeah, Reason is another good one. Like you could go and learn Reason and write Reason, and that would teach you the value of having a type system and the benefit that you get from knowing what a type system is and how to use one is very different from actually using one day to day, right? Like when I was at Dropbox, we had a lot of issues with TypeScript where I would write the types and things like that. Um, yeah, so the thing about statically typed languages like TypeScript is that they front load the cost, right? So in JavaScript, I can write, I don't know, something really ridiculous, right? Like, I don't think Sublime is open right now, but I can do a scratch buffer here. But yeah, so like in JavaScript, I can write something like var thing equals like object 1, 2, right? And this is fine. And then later I can do something like thing.delete 1. And then later I can do like thing.1 equals like some string, right? Um, and what TypeScript will do is TypeScript will fail early here. Like I can write this code and it will run in the browser and it'll be fine. Um, but what TypeScript will do is it will look at this, and when I have types on this object, I'm not going to write it in TypeScript, but like if this was a thing and like one was an int or something like that, like if thing was if thing was an object defined where one was an integer, then when I go and I do this with the string, TypeScript will yell at me because TypeScript is like, hey, this isn't a string, this is an integer. You really need to like rectify your types if you want to change this. And that will teach you a little bit about like the benefits of keeping things the same type and like not just swapping things out like that. Um, so it's worth learning. It's worth using statically typed systems for sure if you haven't used one. TypeScript is a good option if you already know JavaScript because it's 1 and 2, right? It definitely gets very, very complex. And once you get to the point where it starts getting complex and you start getting into generics, you start getting into higher kinded types, you start getting into things like that. Yeah, I see a lot of value in static typing. I don't necessarily like using TypeScript. That's another thing. One thing that's good about TypeScript is their ecosystem is fairly large. One thing that's bad about TypeScript is that a lot of the libraries that are typed by third parties will just use any in all of the library definitions. So you'll end up with an object that has an any type on it, and any black holes all your type information. So you don't actually get to use the type information after using one of these libraries. But yeah, the Apollo tools and typegen and things like that are pretty good for working with GraphQL. Let's see. So we want to make sure that source components exists here. Yeah, I've never used type GraphQL myself. Maybe Hagnerd has a good thing to point you to. Okay, where are we here? I wonder if there's a read your sync version that will just be like, hey, if this doesn't exist, return undefined. Yeah, you really like Apollo's typegen? They've done a decent amount of work on their tooling, so I'm pretty confident recommending anything that is Apollo based. Let's see, what's the best way to check if all of these exist? I think I'm just gonna have to do it myself. You had to move on to GraphQL code gen. It's a reasonable description for the PR. It's what it actually means is that you're enabling the use of absolute paths for the topography.js config more than because you can already specify a path in the config for topography.js. So if you look at topography.js Gatsby, you can already set this path to config module. Yeah, it definitely is short. Um, I would definitely say linked at least to the issue that I had on the Gatsby theme examples. Um, Say, hey, I found this here. Um, it's for enabling the use of absolute paths for things like themes. Um, and then on top of that, add anything that you want and say anything that you want. Cool. Great. Yeah, so that's fine then. It should be fine. And if anybody has any questions about it or anything like that, or if you have any questions about it, you feel free to ping me in the issue. And I'm more than happy to look at it. Yeah, also my GitHub, if I can get onto it, my GitHub username is this. So yeah. So I wonder if there's an npm module. I don't really want to add something to the core. Is there a redirp? That would be cool. I don't really want tree, and it looks like this is tree. So that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something like this. Yes, it is. It is 4K. I try to make the font sizes a little bigger for you all. Um, so let me know if it gets too small. But like the font size that I actually use my computer at when I'm not streaming is, let's see if I can find it. It's something more like this. So that's the font size that I use when I'm not streaming. And it makes it so that I can put like 600 plus lines of code on my monitor, which is pretty dope. But when I'm streaming, it's like, why would I do that? Because then you can't see it. So I make things as big as possible. I am using a standing desk. It's a Geek desk. I got it a number of years ago, and it's basically this stand and then the table on top. Well, if it's gonna let me look at the images and show you, it's basically this stand, um, and it's like mechanical. The display is 39 inches, something like that. It's a Seiki, whatever. Um, this is bigger than the one I have, and it's newer than the one I have. I got the one that I have on like sale for like $200. Um, But this is the thing. I have a 39-inch version of it, but it's a 4K. This is what I don't want to do. I don't want to like write a recursive function to just look at these files. I have to. Really? I don't want to use an event emitter. I just want to, yeah, this is going to have to be a recursive function. That sucks. Yeah, 227 inches is nice. I'm thinking about getting a wide monitor at some point. You say that there's you think there's a FS? Right, the options take an object and it's just encoding it with file types. So readdir isn't doing what I want, but I need readdir. I need like fs.stat on a couple of directories and then readdir on the last one. And really, I don't want to like do that many file system accesses, whatever. Actually, you know what I can do? I don't have to do any of this. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, where are we? I don't know why I'm going to put this in a try catch. And if it fails, I'm going to assume everything, including the directory, doesn't exist. And then it's fine. Actually, we don't care about that error, so we're just going to leave it. But I'm so used to non-existent fat arrows that I just screwed that up. Yeah, and they're just going to return false. So we don't need to write a recursive function. fs.stat does gets you information about the file system. Where am I here? I can do if I can type fs.stat, right? The stat sync and then like dot gives you stats about the file system. So it's basically like I can determine whether something exists or not by like doing this, right? Because this will throw, because there's nothing that exists. But this won't, because the current directory exists. Okay, so I think that works. I think that we can bail out entirely on that readdir sync, because if it fails, this is not like there's no directory and it's not what we're looking for. It won't work. So we won't deal with any recursive functions. We won't do anything like that. We'll just skip it. It looks like this is all working. So we just failed on a JPEG. Interesting, we failed on a JPEG. Um, I wonder if we should block list. I am technically working right now, yeah. This is working. Um, Part of what I do is like community engagement and things like that. So like, yeah, this is technically working. Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, I mean, I work it so that I can stream my work. JPEGs. How do we deal with JPEGs? That's interesting. Um, yeah, that's one of the great things about open source software. Um, it's already open source, so it doesn't matter if I show you building it. But yeah, so themes basically works now for regular files, for JavaScript files and things like that. We have a different issue now, which is around a JPEG, uh, which is super interesting. I don't know what we're going to do about this. Can't find the component located at whatever JPEG and imported and whatever. So that means everything is false. If everything is false, I think what we want to do is just forward it. So I think instead of throwing an error here, what we want is to just pass this through. So we have I forget what this is called. It's resolver, I think. Resolver. Do resolve request. I think will work. This is like internal Webpack API magic kind of thing. Um, so whether this API specifically works like this or not. By PNGs. Yeah, but we're still gonna have the issue with PNGs, man. Come on. Yeah, WebP is super interesting too. Callback is not a function, object. That's not good. I think this is callback. I think we need callback here. I don't remember what the function signature for this is, so I'm gonna go have to look it up. So the thing that we're using here is a resolver plugin. And the resolver plugins are handled in the enhanced resolve package for Webpack. I think we can just call resolve though. I don't think we need to do resolve. I don't know that for sure though. Get hook, but do resolve, yeah. Target request null resolve context callback. So we're just gonna copy this because that's what we need. Basically, all we're doing is forwarding this to the next resolver in the chain. Resolve context, I don't think exists here, so we can just like undefine this. Basically, the target also, I think we can just null out. Firefox is the lone wolf now. Yeah, Gatsby Transformer Sharp makes WebP images. I was trying to figure out how to get an SVG into the Sharp transformer so that I could automatically generate like Twitter Open Graph photos for my blog posts, where it would just be like a gradient on the back and then text on the front, um, which I'm still fairly confident will work, but I ran out of time to figure out how to do it. If I was to set up a web app of my own, my front end is Gatsby, it's React, things like that. My back end is usually Go these days. Your test failed on CI. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to fix the error. Cannot read property name of undefined. So now the target gets passed in technically as part of the result or the plugin initialization, but oh, that's not going to work either because I didn't even build it. But yeah, my backend stack is Go. The most recent thing I started building was a Golang to do GitHub webhook ingestion. So a Golang server, it runs on Kubernetes. It talks to a Kafka queue to do the ingest and then does some processing. So the Go community is, so Go actually has a standard library. I think you're used to JavaScript, right? So Go actually has a standard library that's pretty good. If you were going to do routing or something like that, the Gorilla library is good for routing. It's fairly standard. Yeah, but you also don't have to build things like I just talked about. Like the thing that I'm building like that is because I know containers and I know Kubernetes and I know things like that. You can also just like throw something up on Now or throw something up on Heroku or whatever, right? Like it's not a big deal. You don't have to do things complicated. Thanks for the follow, Dilophosaurus Games. I think I pronounced that right. Failed because there's no cache directory. That's weird. No, I mean, you shouldn't have to build the cache directory yourself. The PR should do it on CI for you. Let me look at you submitted the PR already, right? You actually don't. So I know it feels like you need to know everything in the world to get a job, um, but you actually don't need to know everything in the world to get a job. Program.directory.cache. Yeah, depending on what company you go to, you could specifically do anything you want. There's plenty of people who specialize in like, for example, there are people who specialize in just CSS. Like if that's your thing, you can go do that. Yeah, it looks like there's a path problem in the require. Yeah, I mean it's a real job. It's a real expertise. Like it takes work to do. Um, but like you could be a CSS specialist, or you could be a JavaScript specialist, or you could be whatever. Like your first job doesn't need to be like I know JavaScript and I know containers and I know Kubernetes and I know whatever. Like you don't need to know everything when you get started. See Gatsby Graham. So do you know how to read this error? Yeah, you can post a link. Nobody's abused it yet, so as soon as somebody starts abusing it, then I'll block it. But um, until then, yeah, links are allowed. But yeah, do you know how to read this error? Basically, it's saying that the Gatsby plugin topography module can't find .cache/topography. Oh yeah, that's Dan's post. That's fantastic. That's a good one for sure, especially on this topic. Fluxbox grid, fairly dealing with architecture too, like using BEM, OOX, also know JavaScript, the newer stuff, React, style components, Node, some Express. I mean, yeah, that's a lot, dude. That's like, you know, a lot at this point. Um, you can do, I mean, you can get a job going and doing that anywhere, right? Um, so yeah, so basically what this is saying is that Gatsby plugin topography is trying to require .cache/topography. So this is in the root directory of the user's project, and this is the thing that you just made the changes to. Yeah, no, definitely just start applying to stuff. Um, One of the worst mistakes people make is that like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't feel like I'm qualified enough, or like the requirements list on this job is just like too big. I don't have all of the skills. But the big dirty secret about it is sort of like companies put out list of requirements that you don't actually need to completely fill. So yeah, just start applying to stuff that you think that you might like, and if you get in, then you get in. If you don't, then you don't. Ooh, yeah. So another super, not really a secret, but like the vast majority of engineers don't have any idea what accessibility is or how to do it. Like you should learn at some point how to like work with accessibility and how to write things so that they're accessible for people. Uh, but that's not going to stop you from getting a job at most companies. All right, let's see. Let's look at the code here. And then let's look at the example here that's happening too. So the thing it failed on is Gatsbygram. And Gatsbygram uses topography.js. So we'll look in the config. We'll look at. So this is source utils topography. And the failing check. The error says that Gatsby SSR cannot find .cache. So .cache topography is the file that Gatsby plugin or topography.js writes out. So let's go to Gatsby.js again. And we'll go check out the code here. Yeah, of course. I mean, if you have if you ever have any questions or anything, feel free to go, like drop in a chat or like ping me on Twitter or something. It's totally cool. I'm always happy to help, especially people who are just beginning. So topography plugin, SSR. So it imports from .cache. The thing that it does is write that out into I don't have a donation link. I'm not somebody who needs one. Like the way that I run my stream is that I am actually like working on work while I'm doing my stream most of the time. So I don't actually need a donation link, and you should go either, I don't know, subscribe to somebody or something. Yeah, learning things on the job is definitely good, Lennon. Like, you want to get a job that is slightly outside of your comfort zone, right? Like, for example, the way that I usually choose to accept a contract or not is if it's slightly outside of my comfort zone or not. If it's fully inside of my comfort zone, then I'm not really learning anything. If it's slightly outside of my comfort zone, then I get to learn something. I get to apply the knowledge that I've got, like, learned over the last like 10 years or whatever of doing this. And then I learn a little bit, and then I know a little more, and then I can take another contract that's a little bit more, right? So always look for things that are sort of just outside of your comfort zone, as opposed to being like, oh, I only really know CSS or whatever. I'm only going to stay within the realm of whatever. Did you run the test locally for this, Arshik? And they all passed? Interesting. Maybe there's a caching issue. That's possible. Is this just the Gatsby gram? E2E test examples Gatsby gram. So this probably doesn't run when you run tests locally. No, you probably don't need to rebase, especially if you just did it locally. What is this? This is whatever. It doesn't matter that I just totally misspelled that. So you clone. So I'm going to clone Gatsby.js and take a look at this. Are you building a website with Prismic and Gatsby right now? Cool, so we pull down the repo, we're going to go into it. And I use something called Hub. So if you've used Git before, you'll see that it's alias to Hub for me. And Hub is a Golang CLI tool that I have aliased to Git that does a bunch of nice things. And one of them is it has a PR command. I think I can check out and then paste the number, and it'll check out your PR. So I don't really have to worry about anything, and I can just run yarn now and install everything. Yeah, Hub is super sweet. It's one of the core sort of productivity things that I have, because if you try to pull down people's like um, GitHub repos or GitHub PRs and stuff a lot, then it's really nice for things like that. Because otherwise, you have to add the remote yourself and things like that. Yeah, there are definitely some caching issues. Um, One of the things, so Hub is this thing that I just mentioned. I'll go look at the page again. So it's GitHub/Hub. It's basically um, it's hub.github.com. I RMRF cache all the time, and I mostly it's because I work on things that are really like weird and like internally kind of stuff, and like I'm bypassing the cache for a lot of it, so the cache does not do what it's supposed to do. But yeah, so Hub is this. Um, so you can do things like hub clone dot files, and that'll clone like my GitHub accounts dot files repo. Or you can browse the issues. So like if I do this like a git browse, because I have hub alias to git, it'll open the Gatsby repo for me. So it's super useful if you use Git at all, if you use GitHub at all specifically. Hub is fantastic. Let's look at the example actually. Gatsby Gram. Take a look at the package JSON. I wonder if there's nothing installed here yet. This is running some E2E script, isn't it? I ran out of music too, so I'm gonna go change that. How did I run out of music? I think that's okay. That seems fine. Or we can do some of this. Yeah, it is. Creep is good. I listen to a lot of music. So if you look at this, this is my Spotify account. Welcome to my Spotify account. And these are, right here is where the playlist that I've created starts. And this is about halfway. And that's about it. So I listen to a lot of music. It depends on what I'm feeling like. I create new playlists all the time. Um, like if I was gonna click on one of these random things, and I like created a new playlist. I think if I create a new playlist, it'll tell me how many I have. I don't know how to create a new playlist without selecting a song though. Oh well, whatever. Doesn't matter. No, they're not all genres. So like for example, I'll do a list for every show that I'm going to, and in this case I'm going to a chicane show. So if I play this, it'll be like Saltwater and things like that, that are chicane songs, and then um, I like Above and Beyond Group Therapy, so if you check that out, this is a live playlist that they update, so that's one of them that I have. Um, there's this chill out one that I just started, which only has one right now. There's one called Gimme Gimmes, which is just like me first in the Gimme Gimmes, which is pretty dope. This is more like skating music. This is more like EDM, but not really. Um, there's a show that I was going to go to for Less Than Jake that I created a playlist for, etc. You're adding all of this. Um, yeah, you can probably look it up. I think there's a link in my channel, right? That is the Spotify list. I am a huge fan of Spotify Radio, actually. Um, I'm mostly a fan of the personal mixes. So, yeah. Yeah, I actually saw Me First in the Gimme Gimmes live recently, which was pretty dope. They did a good show. Above and Beyond Group Therapy. I can probably actually just link that in the chat. You know what? Yeah, I'll link. Where are we? There we go. That's my Spotify. Have fun. Yeah, so I actually didn't end up going to that Less Than Jake show, which I really wanted to, but you know, shit happens. Version controlled Spotify playlists. Are you serious? GitHub Actions. That's dope. Yeah, that's awesome. Fantastic. I don't know who New Jabs is. Let's see. Where are we doing here? We're going for this PR. So you have to run this example. I forget what the E2E test. That's what I was looking at. The E2E test script is where? Scripts. E2E test. Let's see what this does. Uses a circle working directory, which is a circle CI environment variable. There's a source path, Gatsby dev, set path to repo. Interesting. What is Gatsby dev? I don't know what Gatsby dev is. I've never used it. Huh. I have no idea. I don't see it at all. It's not in Node modules bin either. Yeah, the GitHub Action stuff is pretty freaking dope. Chill lo-fi, you say, huh? Where is it? This person? I guess this is the one that you wanted me to listen to. Okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten super into lo-fi yet, but a lot of like the Rocket League streamers and stuff that I watch use lo-fi in the background. So that's pretty cool. I should definitely check this out. Oh, this is like old school hip hop. I like this. Cool. Well, I'll give that a good listen later. Um, right now, I'm going to do something that will not take my attention. Some Cascade. Yeah, so I don't know where this goes here. So let's do. I don't know how to run the examples locally. Is there a readme in here? That makes sense. Let me do this.
As a noun, do is usually
Alexa,
defined as an uproarious.
stop. And collage is the one that I'm listening to right now. There's a playlist. If you go to my thing, it's the first one, by the way. Yeah, same error for app there. That's interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to modify the package JSON for the example to point at the new one because I don't know how to use the development scripts for this. Um, I don't know how many directories I have to go out. 1, 2, and then packages. Should be able to just run yarn in here now and it'll use the new one. I mean, I'm always looking for new music, so I'll definitely. Yeah, the Gatsby example installs like Sharp and a bunch of other stuff like that, so it takes a little while to install. Um, I like Sharp for everything that it can do, but it also like is a native module, and native modules are a super pain to install. Jazz, huh? That's interesting. I usually do EDM when I'm working. Um, Lo-fi is probably right up my alley, but haven't gotten into it yet. Yeah, the automatic filtering for Gatsby is super dope, Lennon. Like, it's super useful. Um, let's see, this is probably develop in here, right? So I'm hoping that this causes the issue. It looks like the file didn't get written out, is what happened, which is interesting. Oh, you know why it might be? Where's the PR here? What are we doing? We're doing path is absolute. Path to config module. I ripped this out of a project where I actually ran the code, so I'm not sure why it would. I mean, you don't need to dive into it until you actually need it, so that's fine. Oh yeah, static queries are dope. Yeah, I mean, everybody doesn't know something, Episama. Like, there's so much to learn. It just doesn't matter. Find what you like and then keep doing it. Okay, so this didn't fail, which is interesting. I wonder if it's an issue between the difference in um, build versus develop. Yeah, Dan's a good dude. Um, I've never met him, but everything that I see from him is super, super uplifting and super helpful. So hoping that the error shows up here. If it doesn't show up, then we've got an issue. Let's see. Didn't happen. Okay. Yeah, this is taking the one from NPM, I think. No, you're good. I want this PR to get in anyway. My guess is that you should look at what the file actually says, but so I'm going to get rid of this. What I'm going to do is something slightly different. Also, the theme stuff is stuff that I'm going to get done anyway. I don't have to get it done on a stream right now. So examples. So what I just did was I hooked up all of the examples to all of the packages in um, the Gatsby repo. So we will see how long that takes to install. The React docs are made with Gatsby. Oh, that's funny. I'm just going to delete this one because I'm not going to submit this PR, so it doesn't matter. No, that's definitely it. The issue is that thanks Chaos for the follow. Um, yeah, the issue with programming and stuff is that most of it is taught extremely poorly, and most of it is like you have to spend a shit ton of time um, like going to figure out where things are and how to learn them. It's not actually the learning of them that is the most difficult in my opinion. It's finding out where to get the one explanation that will get it to click in your head. That's the difficult part. Okay, so that didn't work. Anyway, um, so there's one more thing I can do here. CD. So let's go into packages, Gatsby plugin, topography. CS is not a command, of course. It is not. You are right, computer. Um, and then what I'm going to do here is yarn link. So now, if you haven't tried yarn link before, what I just did is I set it up such that I can now go into the project that I want. And I can link Gatsby plugin topography, and it is now linked across. So now when I develop, it'll be using the package. Two parts Googling, one part creative problem solving. I think it's like 90 parts Googling, man. I just like, if you don't know something, the hardest part is to figure out how to find it. Once you figure out how to find things and figure out how to find things that you don't know, you're significantly better off. See, so there we go. There's the issue. That's good. What file is it looking for? Topography. So topography.js is there. It's looking for this file. My guess is that this file doesn't exist. It does not. So there's the issue. So the difference there is that there's no file extension, which is weird. That should work, in my opinion. But that's the issue. Weird. That's what it's doing already. No, it's not that you needed to build it necessarily. So the issue that I was running into when I was trying to rerun it is that it wasn't using the package that was locally. So what I did is I yarn linked the package and then yarn linked it into the example. And then I had to build it because I needed it to be used. But it doesn't matter that you didn't build it when you did the PR. But the issue is that might be that actually. I don't know that it's a file extension problem. Um, so what I'm going to do here is just log out a couple of things. This is, by the way, the approach that I take to debug most things. Add a couple of console log statements. Where are we going here? Well, let me, instead of doing this, let me go into source and I'll just run the build again. Yeah, it would be super weird if this was a file extension problem. I would be quite confused if that was the actual issue. I think, for some reason, that is the actual issue. Console log debugging at work. Yes, this is console log debugging for sure. Where are we? Can't resolve. Oh, I didn't build it. Of course I didn't build it. I definitely just did that, didn't I? Damn. I just caused iTerm to crash, so I'm going to reopen it. Put that somewhere else. There we go. I very, very, very rarely need an actual debugger. Um, that's a personal thing for me. I know that there are some people that are just like super great with actual debuggers and they use them all the time, and that is their bread and butter, and it works for them. But I am a console log person through and through. Because I sort of make assumptions about where things are, and then I go and I console log in that spot, and then it confirms or denies it, kind of thing. Where am I? Packages, topography, build. Yeah, I have nothing against debuggers. I just don't typically use them. Can't resolve React topography. Yeah, I get that for sure. super weird that I can't find React topography. Yeah, the stack trace is pretty good. The problem is that sometimes there can be like 4 or 5 of the stack traces, and then people who are especially starting out will look at the bottom one, thinking that the one like closest to their cursor is the one that they need to look at, and they don't know yet that they need to scroll all the way to the top to make sure that that is a thing that, uh, you know. Okay. Gatsby, React topography, and topography, huh? So what do we have in here? React topography, topography. There we go. Yeah, it's just like a bunch of people who are just starting out don't know that yet. And even people who've been doing it for a while don't really know, like, hey, this is like something I'm new to. Which error should I look at? Reading errors is something that you learn how to do. It's not something that like you should just know how to do. This is so weird. I mean, don't be afraid of the stack traces. If you want to learn C, then learn C. Um, I might suggest trying to learn like Go or Rust before that, but I'm not going to stop you from learning C if that's what you want to do with your life. Yeah, that's my understanding too. So there's another problem that could be happening here, in that usually packages don't interact with npm link or yarn link very well. Yeah, Rust is dope. Actually, speaking of Rust and Go, here's Go, and here's Rust. Yeah, I don't really think of them as competitors, right? Go for me is like something I can build any backend in. I can build whatever I want. Like, it's much more general purpose in my mind. If I need to write something, I can go write it and go. For Rust for me is more of like if I need performance and I need something out of Rust, then I'm gonna go use Rust. Am I a Rustacean or a Gopher? I don't know that I identify as either of them. I guess I'm both technically. I've given talks on Go, um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really identify as either one. All right, this is the last attempt that I have for testing this Gatsby gram site, and then I'm gonna go back to doing themes. Elixir, yeah, that's interesting. Um, I really like Erlang. Erlang is pretty dope. I don't use it for much because I don't have many use cases for it. Um, but I really like Erlang. And then I've shipped Haskell to production a bunch. Haskell's really great in terms of the language, in terms of functional strict typed programming. Um, but I've heard Elixir is much more of a Ruby, yeah, Ruby on Erlang, which I mean is great for most people, right? There's also Lisp flavored Erlang if you're into that. After learning the basics in Go, what are the things to do to build skills? Write code is the answer to that. Uh, it depends on what skills you want to build and what you're trying to do with the language. Um, but write more code is the universal answer to how do I get better at like writing Go. It's you write more code, you build more things, you build another thing, you fuck it up, you build it again, you build it again. Like it is 100% the number one way to actually uh, get yourself into a language is to keep using it and keep using it and keep using it. Okay, so where are we on themes? Hook is used is not a function. So we're going to go into the enhanced resolve library. Yeah, build, rinse, repeat for sure. Yeah, if you want to contribute to Terraform, that's a great target. Where is this? Let's get rid of this iTerm crash notification. I would bet you if there is um, some kind of help wanted logo or logo tag. So they have 1,200 issues. So any of these would be a good place to start, but there are is most of the time. See, Atlas backend, bug, breaking change, CLI, config, crash. There you go. Done. There's 2 issues for you to go try to work on. I mean, this one's been open since 2015, so I don't know how necessarily easy it is, but if you want to go try to start contributing to Terraform, like they do have an easy label. Usually this is called good first issue or something like that. The other thing is that you can sort of like start answering people's questions. VS Code has 4.5 issues. Oh man, that's a lot. How many do you get through in like a week? Check. Yeah, Docker is at 3358, and it's probably not as active as it used to be. Is the VS Code code base actually that big? I mean, I guess it would be, but yeah, almost 1,000 contributors. Almost 50,000 commits. Yeah, yeah. Triage those errors. Hey, I got nothing to talk about. I've got how many on Gatsby MDX? I don't even know. 40. I'm the only person maintaining it though, so. Hey, but I'm at 0 pull requests right now on Gatsby MDX. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's get rid of this and look at this again later. Plug in boilerplate. So we're going to look at enhanced resolve for a second. I think we're going to do it in the terminal though. Should help you triage them. Hey, if you want to help out, I'm more than happy to accept your help. CD vendor Gatsby. Time is it? It's almost 7 o'clock. I should turn my sous vide on. What was I even working on? Gatsby source. No, not source. Node modules, enhanced resolve. Enhanced resolve. What are we looking at? Lib resolver. Cool. Cat that. 229 is what we're looking for here. If hook is used. Where does hook come from? Oh, I know what that is. It's the next step in the chain. Yeah, Atom is slower than VS Code for sure. I know people that use WebStorm, but I haven't used it myself. I swapped from Vim to Emacs a couple years ago, and yeah, I've been Emacs ever since. So if type of hook is a string, see, context, path, request, resolve context, callback. Congrats on getting the feature in. Yeah, I mean, editors are sort of like you can either try to dive into the deep end of editors, but you'll never really get away from it, or you can just like be happy with whatever you have, and that's fine too. Let's try that, maybe. I forget what the one after this is. Yeah, I know a lot of people that are pretty happy with like Vim or like a Vim variant. Um, yeah, that's the thing that happens if you go into these like super configurable editors like Vim or Emacs. You end up not being able to do anything in any of the other editors. So in Enhanced Resolve, there's a list of resolvers. I forget which file it's in. Maybe it's ensure something. Parse plugin, maybe? Nope. Why do I forget which file this is in? Resolver factory. There we go. So I think we're hooking in at relative. So what we want is to hook into described relative. I mean, there's a Vim add-on for like your entire browser. That's mean. My opinion on explicitly writing prop types for React components. Um, I personally tend not to. Yeah, thanks. Have a good night or day or whatever, wherever you are. Uh, yeah, and I'm around. So, explicitly writing prop types. I don't write prop types. Um, that doesn't mean you shouldn't. My personal opinion is that they tend to get ignored anyway. If you write prop types, usually what ends up happening in large teams is that you end up with a lot of runtime errors, and then people don't fix them. Um, that's not to say you shouldn't write prop types, because then you see the errors, but uh, I just haven't seen them be extremely useful. Yeah, libraries released on npm is a good time to take extra effort and do things. Like if people want to use your library, why not use something like Flow or TypeScript? Because prop types are runtime tests. They're not static typing. And Flow and TypeScript both have their own bugs. So if you want to stick with something that's simple, that's supported, that can be used across any project really, prop types are a good option. But again, it's just runtime, so you have to go check your runtime to see if it works. Also, I think we just fixed the issue, except for this image error, which I don't know where that's coming from. This I have no idea. I don't know. I haven't seen this before. This feels like a update to the Sharp plugin that I didn't account for or something like that. That's cool. So there's dead code elimination for pages. But yeah, so I think that all of this works except for this image thing. I don't know why this image thing isn't working. Let's check out the packages and see if this type exists. See, there's an image sharp fixed here. Let the TS and flow peeps write their own stinking types. Yeah, alright. And don't need to throw stones over here at anybody that's trying to do something. I wonder if this is because it's not finding that image. Let's see. So we can get rid of all these debugs, right? Let's look at the, here we go, profile pic, whatever. We can get rid of the extensions. But yeah, I don't know why this image type is not there. Everything else works, which is good. Let's check the GraphQL. I bet you it's just not picking up anything, right? So my guess here is that it doesn't pick up the image because the markdown remark file. Let's just do this. One file. So markdown file. I bet you it's because there's no Gatsby source file system on that for some reason. So where is this? So my guess here is that I moved the Gatsby source file system and I moved the Gatsby source file system to the parent theme. And when I moved it to the parent theme, it was no longer able to find the file system stuff. Well, that's not true at all. That looks like it's fine. I wonder if the source pages is in here. Yeah, the most confusing thing about themes is the pathing. Like, where do you import stuff from and things like that. And I think it's something that we're going to have to address at some point, but it's sort of like the core premise of themes, right? You sort of you have to understand which path you're looking at and where that's going to get imported from. Because if you don't, then you might as well just be building a normal Gatsby site. I think profile photo maybe is in bio. If that was correct, I don't remember. A profile pic is right there. Gatsby theme blog core, blog post. So it's coming from here. Which means that we need a Gatsby source file system on this, maybe? I'm not actually sure why we're hitting this issue. Because this was not included on any file system source or anything in any of the configs. So no, this will be a mystery for another time, I think. I've seen queries be wrong, but so Gatsby image sharp fixed. Where are we using image sharp nodes? What's the fragment called? Gatsby image sharp. Let's look in themes first. Let's look at UI surfaces maybe. Don't know. So it's Gatsby transformer sharp, but there's this fragment, and this fragment is being used somewhere, and I don't know where it's being used. I can't find it. Well, that's just But yeah, so we got all of the other theme stuff working, so I'm not super concerned about this. I think that this will just turn out to be a regular old, like, hey, you didn't include a file system source or something like that. I wonder if the Gatsby Sharp plugin adds a Webpack loader. extend node type, Gatsby node on node create. Where's this error coming from? Gatsby transformer sharp source fragments, but that's not where the actual error is happening. What lang you doing? This is JavaScript. It is Gatsby, so I'm building theming utilities for Gatsby right now. And right now, the actual issue that I'm running into is in one of the plugins, there's an issue with the GraphQL config, and I'm not sure where it's coming from. Looks like this is the right file. On pre-extract queries, so this adds that into the cache. That makes sense. Add fragments for image sharp. Except there should be no image sharp because the config doesn't have any in it. I don't know. What else have you guys been watching today? I'm really quite confused as to why this error is popping up. Everything else works. There are no images being required by the GraphQL schema. Hi from a themed site. That might be it, actually. 'What I'm going to do is I'm going to check the actual original Gatsby starter blog and see if there's actually a image node in that one. Six hours of stream. Noobcat is cool. She has a great blog post about how to set up streaming and stuff. And it's one of the reasons that I have follower notifications now. So that's great. Do y'all usually watch on the weekends or? As we wait for the packages to install. There we go. Yeah, I think NewCat does once a week, uh, always Sundays, I think. No, I don't need you to translate this page, thanks. Let's see here. So let's look at the docs for the new one. So there is image sharp here, so there's something going on that is preventing image sharp from happening for the other one. So what files are these? Because that matters. uh, Children of this node, really? That's all I got. Gatsby transformer sharp. So there's 3 of them here. We're definitely screwed something up with the theme. I don't know what that is yet. Salty egg, Gatsby icon, and profile pic. So profile pic does get picked up. So this needs to be something that picks up the other images. Um, let's look at the code for the new starter that we just did. Okay, so that puts a file system source on the blog, a file system source on the assets. I feel like I got rid of that for some reason. Why did I get rid of that? That's strange. I'm going to do that though. So in the child theme, we're going to add a file system source, and it's going to be I think dot slash will work. Let's try that. Oh, that's the wrong one. Where's my other? There we go. Yeah, start streaming React. Why not? I mean, technically I write React too. I'm just not working on React right now. Did that fix it? That fixed it. That was the issue? Really? That's awful. That feels like a syntax. You know, um, the worst errors are like whenever I miss a comma and then spend like 15 minutes on stream looking for a comma. There we go. So that's fine. So let's see if this works. That's interesting. This is, I think, an error that not many people would get to at this point. Let's see. I wonder if you can only have a single sharp per. If the engine reported bearer errors. No, I was just using that as an example, you know. Like the errors that I get on stream are never really, or like they're very rarely the ones where it's like, oh, this is actually a really hard problem and we're going to spend half an hour fixing it or whatever. The errors that I get on stream are always like, ooh, mistyped a name there and now it's fucked up or like whatever. Um, Things like that. Which is fine, it's whatever. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Gatsby too. Um, yeah, that's. I don't really have anything to say about that. Gatsby's great. It's weird that it gets through all the way to the compile and then fails. So this is the thing that's failing. And Sharp adds this itself. So, man, that's really weird. Oh, yeah. You're welcome. Yeah, MDX is super great. I really like it. Um, I'm really happy I was able to get it work with Gatsby. What am I doing here? Why is this erroring? Duplicate document named Gatsby image sharp fixed. GraphQL fragments and roots must have unique names. The Gatsby transformer adds the fragments, right? So it puts them in the cache. Maybe I just need to remove the cache. Yeah, and his courses site is going to be used Gatsby MDX. I just got him onto it yesterday or today or something like that. I'm pretty excited about that actually. Um, what is going on? That's so weird. So is there, where's the name? Gatsby image sharp fixed. It's only one of them, so it must be getting added twice. Yeah, hit me with the MDX stuff. So this got to be getting added twice. Why would it get added twice? If you use HTML tags or JSX tags, because they're actually JSX when you write them in MDX, um, they get passed through raw. They don't get processed into a paragraph tag. So if you use strong, it won't get wrapped because it's a JSX fragment inside of the MDX file. But because you're using the bold stars, it first converts it to a paragraph because it's text, and then it processes the text inside of the paragraph. It's not necessarily intuitive, but um, that's the way it works. You can. Um, I mean, you can write like a remark. Yeah, you can definitely do that. Uh, if you write a remark plugin, you can do that. If you write a hast plugin or a rehype plugin, you can do whatever you want. So if I show you, where did I write one recently? I don't think. Eh, um, the MDX core is actually going to be the best place for this, to show this. I look at packages and I look at MDX. So you can write stuff that processes like this code or this inline code or anything in any way that you want to. And you get to pass them in as, don't see it on here, but it is MD plugins. So on the Gatsby MDX site, there's hast plugins and MD plugins. And one of these is like remark abbreviation. And you can use this plugin, or you can, what I'm saying is you can write your own that will wrap or unwrap paragraphs around things however you want them to be. So yeah, anything that you want MDX to do, MDX can do, especially if you're writing remark or hast plugins or something like that. How do I dump the schema here? Let's go check out the GraphQL. So this is not going to have image sharp in it, right? It does have image sharp in it, so it doesn't matter. Okay, let's just see what this is before we do. Internal fixed fluid, original, Gatsby icon. Okay, there we go, there's one. I don't know why adding the additional file system source caused that to happen, but I'll have to figure that out. What else is there here? So I wonder if building this would work. I don't know why it's trying to add multiple fragments. Oh, it fails. That's so weird. Let's see. This is going to be something that takes me a while, so I'm probably not going to do it on the stream tonight, but yeah, I don't think any of these are really what I want. It's going to be because somebody didn't add the plugin in or something. Oh. Well, in any case, I think I'm going to end the stream there. And thanks everyone for coming to hang out. And actually, my sous vide is ready, so I'm going to go put some steak in my sous vide and have some dinner. But yeah, thanks for hanging out. It's good to see all you. Yeah, maybe I'll see you next time.